Hey guys, Farrock here. Okay, today's video is about spells and buildings. Now there's not much to say, so I'm going to pretty much cut to the chase and I'll be pretty quick about it. First of all, if you notice, new players tend to make a lot more buildings than professional or older players. The reason is because the longer you play PvP, the more you realize that once you start defending, you lost the game. So buildings should be as offensive as possible. So making buildings like, for example, makeshift tower, which doesn't do great damage but knocks around small units, that's very defensive. That would not be a good strategy on offense. So good players do not have this in their deck, but new players love it because it knocks back units, but they don't think about it. On the other hand, mortar tower is much harder to use. It doesn't knock back, so new players don't like it, but the more advanced players recognize how powerful it is. Let me show you. So we have some units coming in to attack. I don't know, make something nonsense here. Nomad. He's a medium counter. It's complete nonsense to use him against them. But the attack of this building is phenomenal. It's amazing. And what you do is you bring your units and you run towards their units or their wells, and these shots will absolutely devastate them. So mortar tower is really, really good. Spells. You have mine, which is really useful, aside from doing massive damage and knocks back units. So for example, if you place one well and some enemy small units are coming, it'll knock them around and do really heavy damage to them. Probably kill them. And for 80 power to kill 150 power worth of units is really, really nice. There's also eruption. I mentioned this in a video. It's 75 power. You know what? Don't use it on one squad because the squad costs 50. Even if you kill them with it, that's 75 versus 50. That's not smart. However, let's say you had... Okay, ignore this first one. Pretend I don't do this. Okay. So now, we have these units coming towards you. Boom! In 175 power eruption, I killed 150 power worth of units. That's very, very smart. So eruption is a very small area of effect. So if you're going to use it, make sure it counts because it's a lot of power to waste. Now you have something like, let's do some shadow spells. We have Nasty Surprise. I'm using it on fire units, which is weird. It sort of doesn't make sense, but I'm not in the mood of switching around units here. But you would use this with shadow units. So some enemies are coming, and you can run your unit up and press Nasty. See, that was really not smart. That unit was 75 power. Nasty's 50. That's 125 power, and I did nothing. However, let's say these three birds, I think they're like 60 power each. So that's 60, 60. It's 180 power. Let's say then I ran up a Nomad really fast before they could react. And I did Nasty. That was 125 power that killed 180 power of units. That was useful. Also, let's say you're attacking a well and you did a lot of damage and there's very little health left. If you bring in a unit right near the well as it's on its last straw, and then you nasty your units, you'll probably kill their units around it and destroy the well. That's really, really worth it. So a lot of times, eruption or nasties are worth it if they can get down a well, even if they don't otherwise make sense. Now remember, mortar tower was an offensive tower. You don't build it near your base, you build it near the enemy's base. Try not to let them destroy it before it's built because it takes a long time to build. Shadow has a pretty cool tower called Phase Tower, which you can build really far from their base because wherever your units are, you can teleport the tower next to them. So that's really useful. If you want to go offensive, you can have a couple of these towers and suddenly teleport them all around the enemy base. Goodbye. Let's look at another shadow spell. Let's say we have two medium units and we have... Okay, let's say Stonekin army of medium units with shields. So they're good. Say it's a 3-on-3. So these guys are going to make shields the second we get close to them. There we go. So it's a pretty fair fight. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the spell called Motivate. When one of your units is just about dead, which... Okay, let's pretend he's just about dead. He's not, but I'm lazy. You press that, it instantly kills him, and then gives all similar units a bonus of 55% more damage. So it makes them really, really good against medium units. He redid his shield, so I'm going to lose anyhow. But that's the idea. So if you have a bunch of, let's say, this is more like reality. You use Forsakens, but I'm going to use Sunstriders again because I'm too lazy. So you have a bunch of Forsaken, let's pretend, surrounding an enemy base, and the enemy is focusing them, and he's about to kill these guys. You quickly motivate them, and then these ones will do a lot more damage, and you'll for sure kill units and take down wells. It's a really useful spell. Frost has a couple of really cool spells. First of all, they have Glyph of Frost, which, when the enemy advances, they have to hit it, and it falls down and freezes them. Fast units can avoid it, as you just saw. Also, any units, if they're smart enough, they can walk around it because it sort of hangs out in the air. They also have a spell called Home Soil, which while you have units next to your building, you cast Home Soil, and it makes those units do 55% more damage as long as they're near their own buildings. So Frost has that teeny little building ice barrier, which is only 20 power. So most Frost players bring the ice barrier right near an enemy base. It builds really fast, and then they quickly cast Home Soil, and all of their units do 55% more damage. The only Frost Tier 1 tower, at least, that's commonly used is called the Ice Shield Tower. And what it sounds like, you build it not too close to enemy base, but not too far. And while you're attacking the enemy, what seems like a pretty fair fight, suddenly, oh no, oh my god, your units have shields. And of course, with shields, they'll be much stronger, and they won't die, and you'll win the fight. So that's a really useful building. Nature's building, the only one that's really used in Tier 1, is called Stranglehold. Now, it is sort of a defensive tower, but it doesn't just shoot, and that's why it's used. It also roots the enemy units. So it roots them, and then it poisons them. So what you do is, if you find like an area where you have like wells here, wells here, wells there, and you put this somewhere here, then no matter where the enemies come from, they're automatically going to get rooted, which is normally an expensive spell, plus they'll take a ton of damage. So it's a really good building to have. Speaking of roots, there's a spell called Ensnaring Roots in nature. You cast that spell, and you can temporarily, basically paralyze an entire army of good units. And then if you have the right units, here we have some medium counters, they can't do anything because they're rooted in place, and you just shoot them down. So it's a really useful spell. Nature units are expensive, but their spells are pretty cheap. 45 power to paralyze a whole enemy army is really, really, really good. So it's a great spell. And of course, nature's most powerful spell, Surge of Light, where you have army versus army. I'm just spamming here. I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing. I apologize. And you're all fighting. And oh no, it looks like you're about to die, which it really doesn't because I didn't make this fight very fair. There we go. Oh no, we're losing! Use Surge of Light. Boom! It gives you tons of health back, so it's really, really, really great in fights. Okay, that was just a very short overview. There are tons of buildings and spells, but these are the only 4 buildings that are really used in Tier 1. And all of these spells are almost always included in your decks. There are other spells also I left out. I suggest you go explore them. But remember, spells do good things, but make sure they're worth their cost. Do not ever use Surge of Light and heal a 50 power unit that's about to die. Because sure, you're going to get your whole unit back, but you spent 80 power. You could have just spent another 50 power and made a full new unit. So think about these things. If you're going to heal something, try to get all your units together and heal them all at once. If you're going to root, make sure you root a ton of units and you can attack them. Don't just root units because it looks like fun. That doesn't accomplish anything and it costs power. For everything, think about it. Frost, make sure you use Home Soil when you have a lot of units out and they have a lot of units, and it's going to give you a massive advantage. Don't just cast it for a one-on-one fight unless it's really worth it. And motivate. Do not motivate fully health units. Because if you do, that's 50 units, 50 power for the units, 25 for the spell. It's a total of 75 power. It's a lot of power. But if during a fight you see a unit's about to die, that's a good time to then go and motivate it and boost your other units. Basically, don't just cast spells because they look like fun. Don't just spam eruptions on units. Make sure it's well thought out, they will for sure die, and it's worth the power. Alright, from now on, I'm not actually going to do what I've been doing and displaying things and explaining them. I'm going to actually go into matches and review everything we've done live and in real time. So you get a feel of how you're really supposed to use spells, units, and buildings in PvP. After a few videos of this, I'll start getting more advanced for the better players. But for now, stay tuned and keep practicing, guys.